This podcast has mature language, not intended for underage viewers.
Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Hello, this is Keenan of Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. We are on episode 36. Just for those out there who kind of listen, the number just represents the number that we're on. I had somebody say, why 35 with a question mark? And I was just explaining to them that it was the 35th podcast. So maybe at some point I'll look at rebranding, put a little bit more information on there. But this is really for my not edification, but for me to know how many I've done, because I don't want to be like, man, how many have we done? Are we on number 6? Or are we on 200? Because, you tell a story, and every time you tell that story, it gets exaggerated. Yeah, man, I was on episode 6 podcast, and it was beautiful. Then next time you tell somebody it was episode 648, you've done that many podcasts. So the number is just to help us understand and everybody know, how many that we've done. That's what most podcasters, if you go through a lot of podcasts, they always have, like, we don't do the seasons. We're just going episodes. They'll have season something, episode this, and this. So that's why it's numbered. I hope everybody's doing well. We are moving into fall. I don't know about y'all, but do any of you sometimes when you wake up and you go outside in the morning have that feeling like, man, it feels different? Like when it's spring, you go out and it feels like spring, if that makes any sense. It doesn't feel hot. The air smells different. Then when, if you venture outside during the summer, it's hot because when you get out, it just burns you. So it's not really as much of a smell doing that. But when it gets to fall, it's still warm in a sense, but, you can smell it. So like I've always noticed, it's mainly spring and fall. Like you don't smell winter when it's getting cold. But to me, I don't know, somebody out there might, but for me, I when it's spring, I notice when it's spring or it's about to be spring. And when it's getting to fall, I notice it. And I kind of noticed it the other day. It just felt a little different, even though it was going to get warmer. So I know everybody can't wait for fall because it's going to be a little bit cooler. There are a lot of stuff that comes with it. It's hurricane season. And anybody who knows me knows that I am riveted by hurricane season. I love weather. And when I say I love it, I'm not saying, all the stuff that comes with it, the damage, some destruction, sometimes death. I've just always been fascinated by the weather. So, I'll sit when they start talking about tropical depression and it's coming in and I'm trying to predict where it's going to go, even without the models, just looking. And I just get fascinated. I have no idea why I'm fascinated by hurricanes. But I have a definite respect because we don't go do any type of traveling to any coastal cities. It's doing from the month of June and November. My wife would be like, well, they got a special. We can go over here. And I'm like, nah, we got to wait until, I think the last day for hurricanes is like November 4th or November 15th or something like that. I'm not trying to schedule anything 3 or 4 weeks afterwards. So catch me in December or January in one of those warm tropical places because I'm not going during this time, because you get there and this storm didn't veer right or left or it didn't turn and now you stuck and you got to go through that. And I follow a lot of this stuff and some the weirdest thing that I've noticed when it comes to the hurricane coverage. Specifically the hurricane coverage, they'll cover it and you'll see how bad things are and they'll have people and stuff. And then after the storm leaves, you'll hear a few things, but then it's like crickets. You don't hear anything from these from these news places. And it's crazy because I remember they were talking about the Puerto Rico hurricane some years ago, and they were talking about how big the storm surge was. And there was some very, sad stories of a parent. I think it was one where a parent, he got swept with his two sons, and then one of his sons didn't make it, and then you had people talking about how they were seeing sharks and stuff, and how the water rose so quickly they didn't have time to do anything but try to get up on the roof and stuff. And it's just it's really sad. And I feel personally that if some of these, when I say graphic, I don't mean you got to show dead bodies and stuff like they did with Katrina. That was awful. But if you start to really hit home the point of how devastating it is, showing how, look, the water within, 15 minutes, the water was from 6 inches to 25 feet. We didn't have a chance. If we would have listened, to the newscasters and stuff telling us that we needed to evacuate, then we would have evacuated. And it's always amazing how you always have those, we're not going anywhere. That storm's not going to do anything. They say it all the time. You know what? It's always that one time. Last year, you had the storm that hit Florida. Was it Florida? Yeah, it hit Florida, and it came in through the Gulf and turned. And, there were some areas that they were talking about how devastated they were. There was one particular small town where it was pretty much wiped off the map. But you didn't hear anything else afterwards, right? Once it's, you didn't hear any visiting, 3 weeks after it, a month afterward, this is the total devastation, loss of life, and I think I don't want to really be talking about the loss of life because it's precious. But when people start to hear those numbers, and they start to see how bad it was, then maybe you're going to heed it. There's going to always be somebody that says they're not going to leave, and that's fine. And I think I've said on a previous podcast, look, if you decide to stay doing any type of, natural, event, storm, a natural disaster, where it's a hurricane or something, that's fine. But don't call once everything starts trying to have people to come out and save your butt. No, you made that decision to stay. You live with it. Now, I hate it because you'll have some where it's a family and the father, that is making the decision, but the mom and, the kids have to stay because the dad is making the decision, or vice versa. It could be, the mom making the decision, or somebody, or grandparents. Somebody makes the decision that everybody else has to stay because of that, because they don't want to leave that person, and then they all get stranded and some perish. So heed the warnings. I know I am. I'm nowhere near the water, and I'm heeding the warnings. If they say it's a watch, like they'll show the cone, and what the cone is the probability, the area where the hurricane might hit. Even if I'm nowhere near the cone, if I'm like 120 miles or 300 miles away from the cone, man, I might just evacuate. If I was living, if it's supposed to hit somewhere in Mississippi, and I'm in the Gulf of Mexico in Galveston in Texas, I might just go inland because I don't know if it's going to turn left or right. You never know with these things. So it's coming, so if I miss a podcast, or two, it's because I was in front of the TV. I'll leave that TV on all night, wake up in the middle of the night, seeing if it's turned from a category 1 to category 2, and if it's going to hit as a category 4, and, understanding the stuff with the water, barometric pressure and stuff. So I'm really into it. It's fascinating. I just hate all of the damage and stuff that it does, the destruction and loss of life, but it really fascinates me. So, your boy is ready for hurricane season. I might even do a hurricane podcast on Time to Ball. Like, look, okay, I'm supposed to be talking about basketball, but right now, breaking news, Hurricane K just came from a 2 to 3. NOAA just went and did their little, fly in where they fly in and drop the electronic, what is it, electronic gear or electronic instruments that measure everything. So, but look, let me, because I could talk about that all day. Let me get old things on my mind, weekly events. The first thing I want to ask is really a question, is why do we have to say no disrespect? If we're talking about something, a lot of times you hear people say, well, no disrespect, but then they, not that they turn around and disrespect sometimes, but why do you feel the need to say it? Like, if you got something to say, let that, we as the audience should be able to determine if it's disrespectful or not. And like, if it say, hey, no disrespect to LeBron James, but I think Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever alive, right? I'm not making that statement. I'm just giving, an instance. Why do I need to say no disrespect to LeBron James? As if by saying that Michael Jordan is the greatest player alive, that LeBron James is going to be, really butthurt about that. Why do I need to say that? I mean, like, am I worried that LeBron's going to come and say, man, I heard you say that Michael Jordan's the greatest? Like, well, yeah, to me, it's not taking away, how I feel about you. But if I think he's the greatest player, I think he's the greatest player. And vice versa. If I think LeBron James is the greatest player, then, I don't have to say no disrespect to MJ. If MJ feels and knows in his heart he's the best player, it shouldn't matter what I say. So it's gotten out of hand with this no disrespect. Because it used to be when you say no disrespect, you about to disrespect them. Yo, man, no disrespect to you, man, but I think you're a cornball. So why did you say no disrespect? You just try to soften the blow? Because you just call the dude a cornball. You corny or whatever it is. So you saying it, no disrespect, and it's almost like you trying to make them think that everything is cool, and then you give them a backhand compliment, as they say, or you really rip into them. But it's just weird. I see it more and more on TV and analysts, and I don't know, maybe that's just something in the media now that they want to say it. They preface their comments by saying no disrespect, but there are ways to phrase all of that without saying all of that, Like, here's the one thing here's one thing that drives me crazy about the sports media when they say this. When they say, the first time since 2019, like, well, it's not the first time that it's happened. The Chicago Bulls win the first championship since, like, yo, well, it's not the first, man. Just say, yo, they win their second championship. But why do they always say that? This is the first championship. And you're like, oh, man, it's the first. And then you remember, like, wait a minute. They won one back like 10, 15 years ago. And then they'll say since, 10, 15 years ago. Like, why do you have to say that? Just say, hey, they add another championship. But those are things that drive me crazy with that. And I don't know what y'all think. Let me know what y'all feel with that. But yeah, that's just kind of weird. So here's the second thing that's on my mind. Now, stay with me, because the first part of this, you're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Okay. If you don't want McDonald's making your tacos, real authentic Mexican tacos, then my question is, why would you want to coach from a different sport coaching your sport? Okay, so where are you coming? Where is this going, Kay? Now, I'm really talking on the lower levels. I'm specifically talking about middle school and high school to a certain degree. Maybe not on the varsity level. It has happened on the varsity level, but sometimes on the lower level. So here's what I'm getting at. I'll get told a lot of times, and there are times where I even know it. I've directly firsthand knowledge, where you'll have I think it's bigger in the middle schools, where you'll have coaches coaching the basketball team, and they're the golf coach, or they're the volleyball coach, right? Now, if that golf coach or volleyball coach actually has knowledge and or has played and coached basketball, but they just happen to be the golf coach, then I'm okay with that. If you have multiple areas of coaching, you've coached more, I'm fine with that. What I'm specifically talking about is an instance where there was a middle school and the coach didn't, it was more than one instance. The first instance I remember specifically was the football coach was asked to coach the basketball team. The football coach had no knowledge of a basketball. What this coach did is once the football season ended and then that coach started coaching basketball, that coach pretty much tried to take the whole football team to play basketball. How do you do that? Now, I get it. These are your boys. You're used to them. But you're not having no offensive lineman playing guard. Yeah, maybe they can play down in the post, but if they don't know what they're doing and they're trying out, so to me, you have to have an eye for it. I know another instance where you had a volleyball coach, and they were asked. Now, in their defense, sometimes they're asked to partake this because that middle school doesn't have someone that can coach said middle school for that sport. To me, that's on the district and on those schools. You really need to have you need to have qualified people, because where we are right now, I'd say 10, 15 years ago, it didn't really matter who coached your middle school team. They just was doing it to be doing it. They got the little extra stipend. Some really wanted to, so I don't want to try to say all of them. You have some that were doing it to be, for legit reasons. Some were doing it to help, But you have to have a skill, because you are cultivating these kids to get ready for the next level if that's what they're wanting to do. And it troubles me because now parents are spending a ton of money developing their kids. Some extreme. Some, are really extreme, but they're paying money for training, such as ours. They're paying money to put their kids on teams. They're paying money to put their kids in strength and conditioning programs to get them right. All right. So they're doing all of these things for their kids to be ready. And then you go to middle school and you think, okay, this is when it's really getting serious. And you have somebody who is volleyball coach or a golf coach who has no idea about what basketball is, doesn't know plays, doesn't know, practice schedules and stuff. And they're coaching these kids. Now, could you be lucky enough to have 5 to 8 kids that really know how to play and, they can kind of wing it? Yeah. Yeah, you can have that. But I think, in essence, if you're really trying to make these kids be the best they can be, and then have these programs ascend from middle school to high school into the feeder schools going into the high school programs, I think it's important to have people who are knowledge. I would even suggest, having the freshman and JV coach or the varsity. I would have them to maybe run the practices. And that's only if you're able to. It gets tricky because you have the middle school season in some districts start in January, and that's when high school is really, in full swing. But, some districts have their middle school basketball season, like around the beginning of the school year somewhat. So then it's kind of over before the high school season. I would suggest figuring that out. Maybe hiring an assistant to the assistant, and that assistant, is with the team and they coach the team. But you got to have another way for these kids to learn, because there's no reason for a kid in middle school to play in a 7th and 8th grade year and not really know the game. They have some talent, but they're just playing, and it's because, the coaches that they have don't know. And most of these middle schools are the good high school programs are down with the middle schools, and they're there, they're there dealing with the middle school coaches implementing, the structure that they want. So when these kids come from 7th grade to 8th grade to 9th grade, they're prepared. They're running whatever type of sets or something, a philosophy that they're wanting. So I think there needs to be a little bit better partnership, so it runs a little bit smoother. But when I hear, oh yeah, well, the volleyball coach is coaching the basketball, and it was the girls volleyball coach. Now she's coaching the boys basketball, and she don't know anything about basketball. Like, how does that happen? Not because it's a female. I'm just giving an example, but how does that happen? How do you have somebody that has no knowledge of that? So, middle school actually not middle school, but districts. I think needs to be a little bit better process in looking into this. And this is not just a quote unquote, El Paso thing. This happens everywhere. It's bad. It's bad. The process is bad. I didn't hear parents like, I had kids and it's like, so how was practice? Well, we just walked in. They gave us a ball. We ran up and down. We did layups for 2 hours, and whoever made the most layups made the team. Like, huh? Okay, all right. Well, if that's how you do it, that's how you do it. But that's just, that's just kind of my thing. So, those things are on my mind for this week. Okay, so my next thing I'm going to go into is my basketball ideology. All right. So first thing I want to talk about is, how do you put a price on success? Right. So I guess my question is, when you go somewhere and you pay for a service, right? How do you weigh whether that service is worth that price that you're paying? So let me give you an example. Okay, so our rates, and if you don't know how much we charge for a regular trainer, we charge $45 for a 1 hour workout, and it's always that one child and that one trainer. As a senior trainer, I have. That price is $50 for that senior trainer. Now, I went up on my price as the head trainer, and it was really based on 6 or 7 years of being told that I should charge more for what I do. Okay, so now I charge $60. Okay, so I don't force people to quote unquote stay with me if that $60 is out of their price range. I totally get that, but I have to ask myself, if I teach your child a skill, something that they couldn't do before, or something that they've tried to do for a while but they just keep struggling and can't get it, and I'm able to fix that and get it done within a 1 hour workout. It's a lot faster than that 1 hour, but we spend an hour, allowing them to keep going, right? So let's just say an hour. Spend an hour fixing it to now they got it. They can do it, they can practice it, and they can do it in the game. How much is that worth? Is it worth more than that $60 that I was paying? Because for a lot of, look at it another way, that's something that they're always going to learn. There are things that I taught myself when I first learned how to play basketball, 3rd and 4th grade, 4th, 5th grade, I can still do now. So if I was taught that, how much would that have been worth, right? So why am I asking about price? How can you put a price on success? I'm not up here like a TV evangelist trying to tell you, I need your money, to try to make, that's my pastor or preacher voice. I need your money so we can, really help those that need help, under the Lord and stuff. I'm not getting into that, but you kind of get where I'm coming from, right? So what I'm saying is, okay, here's a situation I had. I had a kid who they played freshman, and they was gonna have to try out for JV, and by all accounts, the kid's parents, and I guess the kid's coach didn't think that the kid was gonna make JV. It was almost like a foregone conclusion, like this is the first and last year that you're gonna play high school sports. Now, looking at the kid and a couple of key things that I just, picked up on from the first training, I didn't understand it because the kid had height, which you can't teach, and the kid had a high motor. Now, what does a high motor mean? High motor means that they're active, really. They go for loose balls. They hustle, right? They don't just stand around. They're constantly moving. Well, Kay, how can you determine that from training? Well, this is how I determine it from training. When they do a drill, when they shoot and they miss it, they're immediately jumping back up to try to put the ball back in the rim. If they shoot and the ball hits the rim and it's a rebound and they're shooting like on the elbow, they're running to the ball during the training. If the ball hits their foot in a dribbling drill and they mess up and the ball rolls away, they're running for the ball. I'm not telling them to do this. I'm just paying attention to their activity and hustle. They're wanting to get after it. Those are qualities that most coaches can mold and put you in situations to say, look, I don't need you to score any points. This is what I need you to do for the team. And if you can do this, you can help us, right? And you can get time. So that's kind of what I looked at. But I looked and said, well, this player hasn't been exposed to playing a certain position. So once we work on that certain position and get that player comfortable enough to where that player is going to not be afraid to execute or try to execute, certain skills in games, I think they're going to be successful. Well, that player made the JV team, and they were shocked. They were shocked. Now, I wasn't shocked because I knew they were going to make the team. Now, how much they play is going to continue to be based on how much, the child develops in between now and the season. I think the child's going to play unless they got a team full of monsters, shout out to Space Jam. But if they got a team of monsters that are just so much more talented, I think the kid's going to hit the floor. And I think the kid will trend up and continue to get better because, according to the kid, they never had training. They never had anybody that was able to show them correct, movement when it came to dribbling, layup, footwork, all of that stuff. So they were really behind, and they've made great strides. So as they continue, they're going to continue to get better. I even have a kid that played as a freshman, got cut the sophomore year to make JV. And I explained all of that to him as to why they got cut. They were kind of a taller, bigger kid as freshmen, and then as sophomore, they were still kind of tall and big, but they didn't grow height-wise. Other kids got taller. Now this kid can't play the post. The kid has to come out more to play as a guard, and the kid can't, as Coach Haskins used to say, can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time, right? So the kid suffered and the kid got cut. So the whole year we worked on this kid, being able to handle the ball, getting the shot better, movements, moving like a guard. And now this kid has really transformed the game. And because of that, I don't see, again, unless you got the Monstars playing, I don't see this kid not making the JV. I think this kid will not only make the JV, but will be pushing to get minutes. Now, are there other things at play? There have been some kids that I just knew were going to make the team, and they didn't make the team. Now, there were other circumstances with, freshman coach not really knowing what the hell they were doing. And why do you say that? How do you know, Kate? Because I went to games. I watched them coach. because I had other kids that were on the team that made that team, and then I had other kids that played on another team that they played against. So I was able to watch, because I'll be the first one to tell a parent and the kids, like, look, based on your skill set in here, you can play. But I don't know how you react in game situations. I haven't seen a game. So if I see a game, I can give you a complete picture as to, oh yeah, you're good, or okay, yeah, now you look really good as far as ball handling and making these fancy moves, but in the game you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. So that's a problem that needs to be fixed, right? But I've went and seen on both sides. I've seen certain situations where I had to tell the kid, like, look, those players ahead of you are strong. So you're going to have to compete and be able to let these coaches know that you're just as good, if not better, in all situations as that kid, those other kids ahead of you, to hit the floor. So I'm perfectly honest. I'm not one that goes in and, oh, you should be playing. No, look, if you can't do what they're doing, you're not going to hit the floor. There are only so many players that you can play on the floor at the same time. So many in every position, right? But then the other side of that is I've seen where the other players that are playing in front of those kids are not very good. And those kids don't hit the floor. So it can go both ways. But I think that the kids that I have are in a great position to be able to make the team. This one kid, if this kid makes the team, this could be my greatest achievement as a trainer. And I've had lots. But somebody say, well, how would you say that's your greatest? To have a kid come in at their lowest point with almost all hope lost, because they played as a freshman. They played some. They didn't play a lot, but they did play some. And they get cut their sophomore year. And to transform that kid to where that kid is very comfortable and confident at this stage to be able to go in and try to make the team. I told him, I said, look, when you play open gym and you playing against them coaches, bust those coaches' ass. Like, give it to them. So even if they decide not to put you on the team, you could be like, yeah, you just mad because I made you fall in front of everybody, or I made you look silly, or you couldn't guard me, or something like that. But, you have to go in with a sense of, competitiveness. But I think if this kid makes the team, I would be shocked. I might actually have to reach out to that coach just to say, what was it that the kid didn't do? Not you done lost your mind, but what did the kid didn't? And then maybe I get a little insight to if that coach knows, what they're talking about. So I think you can't put a price on success when it comes to what strides a kid makes. If a kid's able to get a college scholarship, all the money you put into their training and playing and traveling and all of that, it's kind of a thing when you look at it with the money that's being put. But how do you price if you pay too much or if you pay too little? It is an interesting conversation. So, we'll see. I got one down. I got a ton of kids that are going to be trying out to make their teams, whether it's varsity, freshman, JV, 7th or 8th grade. And it's our job to prepare them to get them right. So for the mindset, it just comes down to their abilities. They at least know what the hell they're doing when they try to do a left-hand layup. They know what they're supposed to be doing if they're playing defense and how to move basically. Right. So we will see. Okay. The second thing I'm going to talk about is called development programs. So what do I mean by development program? What I mean is, what is your plan? Okay. Well, development programs. What I'm talking about is we can go high school, we can go city league, we can go AAU, and you can even throw in training. So if you have a program that's developing, and it's not just training, like I said, it can be a team. When that kid comes on the team, then, as parents, you should be asking, well, what is your program? What's your plan to help my son or daughter reach their full potential? Now, there are a lot of things that go into it. Your son or daughter, parents, has to put in the time to work on the things that trainers and coaches have told them they need to work on. But there should be a plan, right? And if there is a plan, are you following the plan? Like what I just said, if you're not following it, you're not going to get the results. I don't know of anybody that if they don't practice on something and they practice on it how you tell them and you show them let them see, hey, when you do it this way, you see how much better it is. I don't know of anybody who continues to work on that doesn't get better. I know a ton. I know people that will not work on it and they come in and it's the same thing and they're asking questions and then you have to reply like, look, you ain't worked on it. It's easy to see because you're not struggling to try to shoot new. You're shooting the same way you were doing last week, or you're making the same mistake ball handling that you were last week. So if you're not trying to work on it by yourself, you're not going to get better. This hour that you spend with us is not going to get you better like what you think. It's what you do away from it, right? So the reason why I say this is, I had a discussion and, I'll leave the interested parties anonymous simply because, I don't, if I say it and it gets back, I never want there to be any backlash to the said parent or that player from that school if that coach happens to hear, what I say about them. I don't care. Like, I've actually told coaches, like, there have been some coaches that I've mentioned it before, they're not digging our program. I don't understand why. It's not like we just set up shop, fly by night. We take people's money and we leave. Man, we've been here since 2008. It's not like it's just some fly by night. So I often tell those coaches, like, yo, that's fine. I'll deal with the next coach because your ass ain't going to be there too long. With the way you're doing, you worried about what we talking about. You ain't even made the playoffs. You last in district or whatever. You have a talented team and you can't reach the full potential. So you won't be there long. And when the new coach comes, we'll work with that new coach. We'll work around you while you're there, right? So, sorry to go off on that tangent. But what I'm alluding to is I've had conversations where coaches have told parents, bring them to us. Bring them to us. We got you. We're going to help develop. We can get them right. We can help them, this, that, and another. And they get the kids and, and they make the decision to go to that high school, or they make the decision to go to that training organization, or they make the decision to go to that city or travel or AAU team. And wouldn't you know, a year, 2 years pass, and the development that those coaches, or trainers promise has not materialized. The players are the same. They're still making the same mistake. They're not being corrected. They're not being shown how to do things properly. And now in high school situations, those kids are stuck because you really can't transfer. Now, if that rule goes into effect with UIL, now you can transfer and not have to worry about being 365. And I think it's great because you have some coaches out here who are being dishonest, who are bringing kids to their team. And it's one thing to bring a kid to a team really feeling good about that kid. But once you get that kid in with other good players, that kid is not performing to what you thought that kid would. And then that kid is not playing as much. That is totally different than just getting kids on there telling them something when you probably know that kid's not going to hit the floor, right? And that kid doesn't have an opportunity, and you're not going to help that kid to be a better player. That is wrong. That's wrong, right? So I think that coaches telling parents to come to their team for A, B, and C but not holding themselves to do that is wrong. You have to be, you got to be accountable. If you're gonna make those kids be accountable for coming in every day and busting their ass to get better and working hard and taking all the abuse that they do, then you need to be held accountable for lying. I mean, look, I hate to use this analogy, but we just saw James Harden talk about the general manager, Daryl Morey, called him a liar. He called him a liar and said he'll never play for an organization that this man is a part of. And James Harden was with this guy when he was in Houston. You figured they had a match made in heaven when he came to Philadelphia. Look, I'm a fan. I used to be a fan of James Harden when he was in OKC. Once he got to Houston, and it was the dribble. I mean, look, the skill set was great, but there was some things that I saw within his play in games that wasn't the same player that I saw in OKC with how he played. Right. And to me, if you're on 4 different teams, that's probably a you thing. It's probably something with you, because that's the only common denominator between those 4 teams. Right. That it's you. So, I would say he needs to look in the mirror with what he's done and how his history is. Some won't do that. It's amazing that some people won't look in the mirror when they're doing something wrong, and then they have people that won't tell them that they're doing wrong, right? But the problem is, for him to come out and say that so confidently, you got to figure that maybe that was something that Daryl Morey did and said, right? So I'm applying that to this situation. If a coach tells a parent that they're going to do A, B, and C, they need to be held accountable for that. Right? There should be evidence. We have a 4-step process. I know I've said it before, and it's easy for me to tell after a week if that player has worked on those things. And I get on some kids like, look, you're not getting, and I get on some of my other kids of the other trainers, because I'll ask them, like, are they working? Because they look the same as what they did 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm really, really, really passionate about that, because I don't want a kid to be in our program for 4 or 6 weeks and they still can't do A, B, and C. Now, if you tell them, again, there are always other reasons for the kids to be with us. I get that, but I'm still passionate about it. So I want parents to hold us accountable, but they got to hold themselves accountable in making sure those kids are doing those things. They don't have as much control with holding the high school coaches accountable, because if the kid is in that program, it's really hard to just up and leave if that coach was not being accountable. And then we know these coaches have egos. So some of these coaches ain't going to some coaches aren't going to own up and say, yeah, you know what, I haven't done my job, or we haven't put stuff in place. Look, I know it, because I know of programs that have structure and are doing things. And then I know of programs that don't have structure. And here, I'll take it even a step further. When you have a kid that plays at one school, but during the course of the summer, they're playing open gym and they're just trying to get a run and stay, and they visit another school and they see how that is, and they play and stuff, and they're in action. And then when they come and they say, yeah, I was over there. It's like, man, I just like the way they do things. We don't do any of that. That's crazy. That's crazy to say, hey, you know what? To say, look, you know what? I like what we do. I like some of the things they do. I wish we can implement it. Then at least you know that there are things about your program that you like. But when you say we don't do any of that, there is no type of structure the way there is there, then you understand why some of these schools are very successful and why some of these schools are not. And I think as the years go by, with parents being more passionate, I'm not condoning the yelling and screaming and telling the coach you suck and all of this and the referees and stuff. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, as the days, months, and years go by, that pressure starts to build. And as parents, you don't have to yell during the game. All you wanting to see is, if we have a talented team, why are we not doing better? Now, we always have to look at if it's us. Is my kid doing what they need to do? And a lot of times you can find that in practice. If these kids are performing well in practice, or if they're making mistakes in practice that need to be corrected and the coaches aren't correcting them, that's on them. If the coaches correct them and they tell them, and the players are still making those mistakes, that's the players. It's really, really simple. When you really break it down, it's really simple to oftentimes find out where the issue is. If it's the trainer working on something that's won't apply and keeps telling that player, this is what you need to do when you do this, and that player does it and it messes everything up, that's on the trainer. That's on the trainer. Right? So developing needs to be developed. That's what it's about. You need to be developed. Now, you can't see me, but I'm wearing one of my newest shirts. It says the best play better. And the reason I love that saying is just simply this. I don't care how talented you are. How much you work on your game and how, all of these things. When you're on the floor, the best are always going to play better. And you have to be okay with that. As long as you're playing your best, but understanding that there are some people that are just better than you and they're going to be playing better. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of the hierarchy of things when it comes to playing sports. I just want to put that little tidbit out. I just made sure I actually really like the way it looks on my navy blue shirt. So I might have to post a picture of it and put it up on the podcast or something on the website, on my social media. So people, I got to get back into it. I've been in kind of hiatus with some things, but this month with our just so you know, this is our 10-year anniversary. I hadn't been mentioning it. So all of our shirts are $10. Now, we're not shipping them out. You got to come in store to get them. So if you're in Okinawa, Japan, I'm sorry. Catch a flight over here. Maybe I give you a little discount, for your travel, and you can come get this shirt. But I'm not putting them online. Everything's in store. So that's gonna be all for today. For that, we got bonus content. On the bonus content for the Patreon, we're gonna discuss the disconnect between old school and new school NBA, skill level versus IQ. That's a fascinating story. And then I'm going to talk about bad decisions. And I'm also going to talk about the history of Vertimax. What is the Vertimax? Man, y'all got to tune in for it because it's really good. So if you're not a part of Patreon, then subscribe to Patreon every month so you can get a lot of bonus content. I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate y'all. Again, if I'm not on next week, it's because we probably had our first tropical depression, and I'm glued to the TV trying to see, where this thing is going to hit. So with that, I'm going to end it like I always do. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street cred sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street cred sports, okay, that's a bet.